Hola amigos, ¿cómo estás? We were going over the Meditations by Marcus Aurelius. We had finished book 7, so now we are in book 8, and I would like to start with sections 2 and 3, which I think go well together. Ask yourself this about each action. How does this sit with me? Shall I regret it? In a short while I am dead, and all things are gone. What more do I want if this present work is that of an intelligent and social being sharing one law with God? And then section 3. Alexander, Julius Caesar, Pompey, what are they to Diogenes, Heraclitus, Socrates? These men saw into reality, its causes and its material, and their directing minds were their own masters. As for the former, they were all slaves to their ambitions. It's interesting. So we have two themes. On the one hand, we have, as very often with Marcus Aurelius, at any moment, this could all be over. At any moment, your life could be done, spent, up, just gone. Well, memento mori, remember to die. We've talked about that a number of times. But there's two things here that he says that I think are very nice. Yes, he relates it to death and everything could be over. Yeah. We get that point, Uncle Marcus. We got it, because you mentioned that every third sentence, so to speak. But I like what he says in that first section. Ask yourself this about each action. How does this sit with me? Shall I regret it? And it ties into something we've talked about in one of the previous installments in this series, of doing the right thing, which is very, very central in Stoicism, right? Doing the right thing, being virtuous, virtue ethics. Without being virtuous, you can't do the proper thing, and without doing the proper thing, you can't be happy. You can't lead a rich and fulfilling life in the Stoic mind. But this is a very practical way to think about that. For everything you do, ask yourself, how does this sit with me? Shall I regret it? Everybody sometimes does things that later you regret. This is normal. But when you start to do that for everything, I think you start to notice that certain things that you may want to do will have consequences if you do them. Now, everything has consequences, but a simple consequence could be, this thing that I'm about to do, is that truly the right thing to do? Is it a virtuous thing to do? If it's not virtuous, why am I doing it? If it's not a proper thing, if it's not a correct thing, not the right thing, a good thing, why am I doing it? And what do I seek to accomplish by doing that thing? And it's a simple question, right? How does this sit with me? And shall I regret it? And I think that's a very interesting way to look at that. How does it sit with me? If I do this now, down the line, am I going to regret this? And I think that's a very interesting viewpoint. Now, there is also this second issue, right? Where he talks about these famous people, Alexander the Great, right? Julius Caesar, Pompey, great. You could call them statesmen, but realistically conquerors, if not usurpers, if not dictators. And that's interesting how he makes that parallel. What are they to Diogenes, Heraclitus, Socrates? These men saw into reality, its causes and its material. Their directing minds were their own masters, but as for the former, they were slaves to all their ambitions. Think about it. Think about Alexander the Great, who conquers and conquers and conquers, who creates this massive empire, but is also then basically poisoned by his own soldiers, at least I believe, so legend has it. You can be driven by ambition, and to a degree that's good, because the ambition will make you strive to be the best version of yourself you can be, and no Stoic would deny that that's a good thing. In fact, that's one of the central tenets in Stoicism, that you do continuously strive to do the right thing, to be a good person, to be the best version of yourself you can be. But if you are driven by ambition blindly at the cost of everything else, then that ambition becomes something that actually holds you back. Alexander was incredibly successful in conquering, vastly increased the size of his empire to the point where it's almost insane what he accomplished, but didn't die a pleasant death. I don't think it's fair to say Alexander was loved by all. His own men turned against him. His own soldiers. Well, that's interesting. Julius Caesar, well, we all know what happened to Julius Caesar. That was not a pretty end. So, you have to strike a balance in being ambitious, I think, but not at the cost of everything. To want to achieve things is normal and natural, but not at the cost of everything. And way back, talking about Epictetus and such, we talked about how these kinds of things could be indifference, right? That you may or may not be fully in charge of getting that promotion or whatever. You can do what you can, and you should do what you can, but at the end of the day, it's other people deciding whether you get the job or the promotion or the whatever. So there is that. Then there's also the matter of control. You're in control of some things, not other things. And then they are indifferent, so no matter whether you get the job or not, you could still do the right thing or not. But again, I find that concept interesting, of the ambition and striking the right balance between being ambitious, but not at the cost of everything. If you are so ambitious that you work all the time and you don't see your family, for example, or your friends, or whatever your situation is, then that ambition is working against you, is holding you back. If you are so ambitious that you push the people around you very hard, as Alexander did, you may end up drinking poison, figuratively speaking, hopefully, but you know what I mean. So that's an interesting balance to strike, I find. So I really find these two sections interesting. On the one hand, the continuous question of how does this sit with me? Will I later regret it? And on the other hand, the matter of the ambition that you can have and how that can actually work against you. And in my mind, those two things are kind of related, right? If you are blindly ambitious, then you are probably not asking yourself, how does this actually sit with me? How do I feel about this? How will I later feel about this thing I'm about to do? It doesn't have to be anything terrible, but I'm going to give a somewhat exaggerated example, with backstabbing colleagues just so that you can reach the top. Will that sit well with you? How about 5 years from now, or 10 years, or 20 years? How you look back on your life and think about what you have done and how you have done that, how you have accomplished those things. It's interesting. I find these very interesting matters. I hope this was interesting. Let me know what you think, as always. And I'll be back next week. More talk about Stoicism. Bye.